live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the MKUltra show. I, of course, as always, am your host, Carter M. Nelson. Very excited to be back with you guys tonight on Tuesday. Big show. We're going to be talking about Taiwan. They are currently undergoing military drills to prepare their civilian populace for the possibility of what a Chinese invasion could look like so that they are ready in the chance that that actually goes down. So, kind of a big deal. That means that the Taiwan government, it's a serious concern for them, reasonably so. So, that is going on over in Asia. And back here at home in the United States, we are going to be watching Wisconsin. Right now, Francesca Hong, a DSA candidate, is making shocking waves in the Democratic primary for governor. Currently, her opposition is David Crowley. Last time I checked, she was losing at 40% versus Crowley's 40.6%. Very close race. She was winning early in the day. Let's see if that's changed at all. She's up to 40.1. He's down to 40.2. So that's going to be an incredibly close race. We'll be breaking down exactly what it means, not just if she wins, but also what it means that she's doing so well. A candidate who really wasn't supposed to do that great. And he just grew another percentage up to 40.3. But we'll be keeping our eye on that. We'll talk about it a little bit. I would be shocked if the election gets called before the end of the show. Currently, we're looking at 76.9% of the expected votes in. But yeah, we'll do a little bit of a breakdown of that. So, very exciting, very big show. And we're going to jump into it in just a moment. But before I get to our headliner, please, I would like to ask you like, subscribe. It helps out the show more than you could possibly imagine. So, I greatly appreciate it. But we're going to go ahead and get right into Taiwan, potentially preparing for a Chinese invasion. Now, the ultimate goal of the drills that they've been running is to show China that attacking Taiwan isn't worth the pain, even if US forces don't come to Taiwan's aid. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. Planned highlights include the mobilization of 20,000 reserve troops, the slowdown of mobile internet services for millions 4 millions, and drone exercises inspired in part by how Iran inflicted pain on a more powerful enemy. The annual exercises serve as a chance to test new plans and tactics developed to fend off China's military, according to the military planners in Taipei. The, so, that's what we have going on over in Asia. Very very concerning stuff with that. And it shows that the concern we've been having back home about what a US Iran escalation could look like is starting to come to fruition. And it's something that is being paid attention to by the higher ups over in Taiwan. So, yeah, not great at all. And obviously, we've been talking a lot about, hey, so China, Iran, Russia, they're in a bit of an axis, right? They work together, they trade with each other, they have positive relations. Not quite a defensive pact, but very positive relations. And something I've been quite concerned of is the possibility that China would use the distraction and the depletion of the United States military over in the Middle East as an advantage to go ahead and take Taiwan. And again, this is clearly something that they're concerned about too. Because here's the thing, you don't go and shut down your people's internet, start running military drills, make it an annual thing, unless you have a legitimate concern something might be coming. And something that's been reported is that Taiwan is one of the only countries in the world that actively has another nation, being China, who is actively trying to take down their internet constantly. They're trying to upend essentially what makes a nation work in the modern age. We all understand this. Internet is gold in modernity. So destroying that is a major risk to the day-to-day life of the citizens of Taiwan. And now their government wants them to be prepared for this. So it's been announced that twice this week they're going to do a significant slowdown of their people's internet. They've already been running drills as we talked about the planned mobilization of 20,000 reserve troops to ensure that they are ready for anything that could potentially go down on their border. So again, just something that deeply, deeply highlights the concerns that we've been talking about for quite some time, as I'm sure all of you quite deeply understand. If anything could potentially blow up into World War III, it would be the tensions between Taiwan and China. To give you a little history lesson for those of you who don't know, and again, I'm sure most of you listening do, but essentially what happened post World War II was the Chinese Civil War, where the Chinese communists, backed by the USSR, were able to push the Chinese Nat Party all the way out of mainland China into Taiwan. Taiwan was a country that the United States recognized as the official government of China up until the late 20th century. And we've maintained good relationships with Taiwan ever since. We didn't even recognize China until we were trying to de escalate things with the communists, specifically the USSR. That was the entire purposes of us recognizing the Chinese communists, the CCP, as the official governance of China. So we have maintained good relations with Taiwan. On the other hand, we have had Russia maintaining good relations with China. So if anything is going to blow up into World War III, it would be these ongoing tensions, a tension that has been present since the end of the Chinese Civil War. This has been brewing for over half a century now. And Taiwan is taking notice. Taiwan is trying to prepare their public. And again, they're not going to be doing these things unless they are taking the Chinese threat seriously. They are preparing. They are ensuring that their people are ready to fight what would be a doomsday conflict for them. I mean, we're talking about a coalition between Russia and China. Russia never even signed the Geneva Convention. I'm not entirely sure about China, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. So it would be a doomsday conflict, and that's why, as the article from Wall Street referred to it as, was they are looking at how Iran has managed to deter the US, and they're trying to essentially implement those things in the island of Taiwan. So hopefully that blows over. Hopefully it's nothing, but it's something worth keeping our eyes on and our ears glued to, because you really never know, and especially with the escalating worldwide tensions caused by the Middle Eastern conflict, there's a chance that China tries it because they've been waiting for their opportunity for a very, very long time. So, yeah. Hopefully it blows over, though. Hopefully it's nothing. Moving on, we're going to get into what's going on over in Wisconsin because I have to be honest, it's not great. So, Francesca Hong is one of the Democrats currently running for the open governor seat after their previous governor stepped down after their third term. And she's trying to take that mantle on behalf of the DSA. She is a very open DSA candidate, one of the more far left ones we've seen. And as I previously said, right now, currently, she's only down 2%, 0.2% in the primary. Again, now we're at 77.4% of the expected votes in, with her coming in at 40% of it, with her opposition, Crowley, 40.2% of it. And I gotta say, Crowley, isn't that ironic? Such a democratic name, Crowley. So there's something so demonic about it. I have no idea why. Why would Crowley sound demonic? But yeah. Um, so yeah, she is currently trying to be the Democratic nominee to run for that governor's seat against Tom Tiffany. Now, Tom Tiffany won by a landslide Currently, the race has already been called on the Republican side. He's coming in at 95.6. And an interesting development across this primary is the Republicans have actually been supportive of Francesca Hong, backing her campaign, putting money into it to ensure that she wins because she's viewed as a less threatening candidate than David Crowley, who's coming in as an establishment Democrat. And to give you an idea of how far left Miss Hong actually is, far left policy views and past social media posts that have called for everything from abolishing the police to canceling Thanksgiving because she saw it as a colonizer holiday. This is the level that we've seen the Democratic Party shift to, and that's why we're seeing a civil war in the party. You have the more establishment Democrats, who you have to remember with how old these people are. Many of the Democrats in the establishment were around when the Democrats were pro segregation. I mean, Joe Biden was one of the last members of Congress in general backing segregation. So you have to remember that's where the establishment Democrats are coming from. I mean, they came from a much more conservative time. There's despite their drastic movings to the left wing on many issues, they're still very skeptical of these socialists who are coming through because again, they grew up quite literally through a time where there's a constant threat of nuclear war between essentially capitalism and communism. That was the thing, that was the political issue. Communism used to be totally unacceptable. So the establishment Democrats are in no way seeing eye to eye with these DSA members. However, the DSA is becoming extremely popular over the Democratic young left wingers. The young people are incredibly supportive of these populist movements. We're seeing it on both the right and left wing. That's why, as I've stated a few times, I expect James Fishback not necessarily to win in Florida. I would be shocked if he does, unfortunately. But I do expect him to basically sweep the younger Republicans in his primary. And that's essentially what we have with the DSA. The difference is what we're seeing is the older people are not necessarily outvoting the young DSA candidates, and they're actually doing an all right job at getting some of the older folks as well. But the Republican Party do not see them as strong of a threat, so they've been backing their primary bids, which is something we're going to get into in a little bit because it's not a strategy that I necessarily think is going to work out for them in the long term. I think it might win us a couple elections in these midterms, but I think it's a very poor strategy for, I don't know, anywhere between 4 and 16 years from now. But establishment Democrats, again from the Wall Street, establishment Democrats are concerned that Hong could cost the party a winnable governorship in a key state. Republicans spent millions to boost her among Democratic voters, hoping to make her the party nominee because they believe she would be easier to beat in November. And this one's from Gallup. Socialism is pulling very well among Democrats, with 66% viewing it positively. But among independents, we're seeing about a 38% support, and it does terribly, with Republicans at a support of just about 14%. Aleister Crowley, yuck. Yeah, you get it. You get it, man. But yeah. So essentially, what we're seeing is the Republicans are saying, let the DSA win. Let them take the primaries. We would rather face these far left candidates because it will make more winnable general elections. These DSA candidates are very unlikely to perform well among independents. So while they will win deep blue areas, as we talked about with Colorado District 1, as we saw in New York City with Mamdani, and countless other places so far, in a place like Wisconsin, where there is a great deal of swing voters, a DSA candidate is very unlikely to win. So the Republicans are doing what they can to put her in that position. And to update you, the election is now at 40.1% for Crowley and 40.1% for Hong, with Crowley maintaining a lead of just a couple hundred votes. Really, this one could go absolutely either way. We'll see. Honestly, if Crowley wins it, I expect the state to go blue in the general. However, if Hong wins it, I do expect Tiffany to take the election, which is why Republicans have put so much money into Hong winning. But as I said before, I don't view this as a viable strategy for the long term. And there's a very, very strong reason for this. As I talked about before, young people are moving farther and farther into these populist movements. And one of the issues with candidates doing incredibly well inside of their primaries is it positions them to potentially have strong influences in the future of government. So let's say Hong wins, or even Hong maintains a close distance, which is a certainty at this point. It'll put her in a position to do well in the future. And once these old people start dying out, the popularity of the DSA it'll become essentially everything that the Democratic Party is. I mean, we've already seen the slow push to socialistic principles, but we're going to see is a complete flip. The DSA is going to take over the Democratic Party. It's just a matter of time. And the Republicans putting money into these DSA candidates, it's not going to be a good long term strategy because what it will do is move that curtain and it's sliding it further to the far left. And guess what? Establishment Democrats, sure, we don't like their policies. They're not great, but they're nothing compared to these DSA members. Because guess what? The DSA actually gets stuff done. They do what they say they're going to do, and what they say they're going to do is terrible. I mean, they hate our country very openly. They all talk about how much they hate it. I mean, we have Hong saying that Thanksgiving needs to be abolished because it's a colonizer holiday. They hate our history. They would do everything in their power to do away with it. And another interesting thing I did want to mention before I keep talking about this is how many of these DSA candidates are non-American. Hong comes from Korean parents. She's a second generation. Mom Donnie isn't an American. What we've seen consistently among the far left is non-Americans. Non-Americans coming over here, putting in these crazy policies that destroyed their native countries. And we're just supposed to live with it. And why do we have to live with it? Well, they do very, very well among the non-American vote. That's where they see their success, that non-American vote. And they are capturing it and they are running with it. Because guess what? No matter how much you want to promote immigration, even if you're one of those people that says, oh, well, illegal immigration is the issue, but legal is totally okay. You have to understand that when you allow mass immigration from even legal immigrants from nations which have cultures that are the antithesis to your own, what you will naturally see is your culture degenerate and fall to these non natives. It's not a good thing. There's a reason that the United States, for its entire history, until the early 20th century, did not let essentially any non European immigrants in. And even then, they didn't like the Irish, they didn't like the Italians. America was purely an Anglo-Saxon country, and it was meant to maintain that culture. Now, as Europe became a more standardized culture, that became less of a necessity, a significant less of a necessity to maintain that Anglo-Saxon only. But what we've seen is now, as we've moved across all of Europe, we began letting in immigrants from everywhere. We brought in the Asians to work on our railroads for cheap. Something that still continues to this day. We bring in immigrants from India to do our labor for cheap. We brought in the Africans, many of which through slavery, which is a stain on our culture, and now is a consequence we are paying for with a non-American culture getting moved through us. What about the natives? Well, they moved that we were the only people to ever treat natives to a nation well. Like, I'm not saying that we treated them great, but we gave them reservations. Any other nation throughout history, you conquer land, you kill their people. We didn't do that. But we moved them to reservations, and honestly, for the most part, the natives have done their own thing in a small enough population to not degrade our culture, so I don't have a huge issue with it. But still, you have all of these non-European cultures coming in, degenerating our national culture, and it's just not good. It's not good, and it leads to the extreme leftism that we are seeing grow across the nation. They are voting for non-Americans who have non-American cultures who hate our culture. And you know what? Call me racist, call me xenophobic, I wouldn't consider myself those things, but what I do consider myself is somebody who loves Americanism. Somebody who loves this nation. I love our people's culture. I love everything from going back to 7076 all the way back through the Middle Ages of Europe. I love the Roman Empire. I love Napoleon, his story, Alexander the Great. Those are powerful stories that are part of our culture, but we are letting that die, and our people have so conveniently been forced to forget that we are the world's majority. Excuse me, the world's minority by a significant portion. We make up, I believe, about 9% of the world now. Before the World War One and World War Two, we were about 30% of the world's population. We are a dying people with a rich culture, and honestly, I happen to think our culture is worth preserving. And that's the issue with these candidates. Non-Americans coming in telling us that our culture is wrong. Our culture is evil. Well, guess what? You want to go back and look at your culture coming from Korea? You want to look what the Asians did to each other for centuries and centuries and literally thousands of years. You want to see what the Mongolians did? Guess what? Your people don't have such a cute little fancy history either. I don't care if it's all anime now. It wasn't so pretty back in the day. In fact, North Korea is still maybe the most evil authoritarian state in the world. And you're going to tell us that our culture is flawed and we have to get rid of it because it's colonialism? What do you think you're doing here? You're a Korean. If you think that colonialism is the issue, get out of my nation because you're not a native here. Guess what? I'm not a Native American, but I was born here. My parents were born here. Their parents were born here, and their parents were born here. Tell me how much more native it gets than that. So, yeah, if you have an issue with colonialism, go back to Korea. Donnie, back. All of you, go back if you think that us going to someone else's land was wrong. What a hypocrite you are. And how is that something that remains unnoticed? It feels ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It feels ridiculous because it is. But no, we're supposed to put up with it because somehow white people are the evil of the world. But no, look, I don't think anything bad of the Asians. In fact, I think the Asians also have a rich history. But here's the thing, I think our culture deserves to survive. I also think theirs does too. And all the other nations of the world, Africa, Latin America. These are cultures that are rich with history. They deserve to survive. Maybe not so much Africa, but still, a culture that deserves to survive. So it is disgusting to me to see these hypocrites come over here and tell us that us going to someone else's land and changing their culture was wrong. Because guess what? What we did, we came over here to a barren land and brought civilization to it. And that is beautiful. That is the conqueror's spirit, a spirit that has only truly been embodied to its greatest extent by the Europeans. A culture which says we will grow, we will do great things. A culture that says we look at a nation that is empty, and even though we have great land in Europe, we're going to go to the Americas and make the greatest nation to ever exist, undebatedly. So, yeah, that's my issue with these immigrants coming over here and telling us how to live. And again, I'm not a fan of the Republicans backing these DSA candidates. I'm not a fan of us putting our money into it. I guess I say us. I'm not a Republican by any means. It's a dead party. It's just the one that seems the easiest to get our message across into because at least there are some real conservatives left in it. But I don't support us putting money into these DSA candidates because I think it's just going to further the culture moving that way. Even if she doesn't win today, which there's a decent chance she does. Currently, we're looking at Crowley coming in at 40% of the vote, Hong coming in at 39.9% of the vote, 81% of the votes in. Again, it could go either way. I mean, maybe the establishment Democrats, yay or nay, are potentially known cheaters, so you never really know. Maybe they'll throw the election to Crowley because they know he has a higher chance to win. But even Hong doing so well at this point, It's something to be concerned about because she just put her place as somebody who's going to have influence politically for a very long time. She's young. She has a young supportive base. Crowley has an old supportive base. Who do you think's going to last longer? I'll give you a hint. It's the one that's moving with the future of the Democratic Party. And I don't like us supporting the future of the extreme left who legitimately want communist states, which is so ironic to me, by the way. I was thinking about this earlier. They all believe in communism, but they also all love all these liberal ideas, ideas which were heavily pushed down against what is undebatedly the most successful state in communism history, which is the Soviet Union. Evil state, but undeniably successful as a nation, maybe not for the public civilians, but I mean socially, it was pretty conservative by today's standards. I mean, there aren't a lot of other nations in the world today who will still kill you for being a homosexual, but Stalin would, and they hang Stalin flags, so it's ironic to me. But these left wingers, they legitimately, the future of it legitimately wants a communist United States of America. And us supporting that only pushes us further to that line. And that's not a good thing for our country's future. Not a good thing in the slightest. The Republicans have to be careful with that. We'll see how populism does on the right wing very shortly. Early voting has started in Florida. Fishback, who we are all very hopeful of his candidacy, although it's a cautious hopeful. I won't be crushed if he loses because I expect it. I will be ecstatic if he wins, and that's something we will be tracking on stream, I promise, next Tuesday because I'm ecstatic for that, and that's something I will want to keep my eye on all night. I'll give you guys an update on what happens in Wisconsin on the show tomorrow, 8 p.m. Mountain Central Time. Hopefully, be back again there. I'm going to begin wrapping up the show now. If you have any questions for me before I get off air, please throw them in the chat now. I will respond to those. In the meantime, we're going to do a quick recap. First, we have Taiwan preparing for a potential of Chinese invasion to the point where they are running active military exercises, shutting down the internet for their civilian populace so that their civilians are ready and know what to expect. Dangerous tensions brewing there. This is a plan that will become annual, according to Taiwan's government. So that's definitely something that would become crucial. Again, the tension there. If anything's going to start a World War III, it's going to be the tension between Taiwan and China. Again, a tension that has been growing since the communists kicked out the nationalists of mainland China. Something that honestly, who knows, we could see in the United States with socialism growing. It should be a warning sign to all of you. Don't let it get to that point because we saw what happened in China. It's real. It's a real threat. People support this kind of thing. Also, we have Francesca Wong in Wisconsin. I'll give you one last update on that. Currently, Crowley sitting at 40%, Hong at 39.8%, 82% of the expected votes in. Hong, again, a DSA candidate which the Republican Party put a great deal of money into with the goal of her being who Tiffany would be running against in the general election because she is considered more beatable. But again, concerning strategy, because who knows what could happen in the long term? I mean, I say who knows, but we do know the left wing is going that direction. The young people are going to the extremities of both sides, and funding the extremity of the left will only promote it 8 years from now. It's a threat the Republicans are instead of dealing with now are getting cooked on, instead of dealing with now are preparing to get cooked for in 8 years. It's not going to be good. How do you feel Fishback is doing in his campaign right now? Fishback is doing incredibly. He's undeniably doing incredibly. Nobody is working harder than him. He reaches out to supporters. He is constantly on tour. I mean, I believe he did a 24-hour tour of Florida, 24 hours straight of campaigning. No sleep, nothing, of just campaigning. He hit up every single county in Florida, which, according to him, he is the first gubernatorial candidate to ever do in the state of Florida. He's working hard and he's built a great base for somebody who honestly was a no name in politics a year ago. So very impressive. I don't expect him to win, but I'm hopeful, and I think he's got a bright future in politics, a very bright future. And I respect the guy a lot. I think what he's doing, going with the more extremity of the right wing, it's a brave thing to do. He's clearly a very intelligent and well spoken man. So I look forward to seeing what he pursues after this race, whether he wins it or not. So very hopeful about him. Again, that race we will be covering a week from now. Excuse me, a week from now, next Tuesday. So very, very excited for that. But we'll have to see where that goes. But on that note, I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Before you click off, please like, subscribe, share the channel. It helps out more than you could possibly imagine. And I greatly appreciate all of you guys' support. So thank you so much for watching. So long, peace out, and God bless y'all.